Ooh. Huh.
Aloha, welcome to this week's video. So this week I'm working on this piece. So I actually broke this sword a while back. I think I broke it while I was testing. It was really meant to be an ornamental piece, but I still wanted to test with it, and I ended up breaking off the end. And so I've not really known what I wanted to do with it, so I decided to fix it. But then I decided, instead of just fixing it, I'm going to recreate it. So I didn't actually have a plan going into it. So this is, I'm pretty much going to be just winging it as I go through it. So the first thing I needed to do was obviously get rid of all of the lashing. You'll notice that the teeth stay in place even with the lashing, and that's because of the small amount of epoxy that I use. So the teeth still stay in pretty good. They just don't hold in against any force if you test with it. I forgot to turn my camera on when I was drawing this, but part of what I was thinking about doing was kind of like a Tanto style sword, like a katana. And then on the blade, I kind of wanted to do like a lightning design. So this is definitely not for a customer. This is definitely for just my own personal piece. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to change out the handle. So the handle for this piece was inset, almost like a mortise and tenon connection, but I glued the entire connection together so it wasn't coming loose, and so I needed to cut into it and kind of make a new handle. What I wanted to do here is very similar to like a katana, where it has a hidden tang that slides into place. I wanted to do the same thing. Now, one thing that I noticed when I cut it free is that there was a section here that was gouged out. It was a mixture of the wood and the bill. It was a section of bill that was still soft. I didn't realize that until now, and so I'll have to fix that here in a little bit. But first, I'm just getting this down to shape. So my idea here is it's going to be very similar to like a katana, where you slide it into place. So I have a section of leftover koa from a different piece that I made that was pretty much the perfect size. And so I'm just going to be cutting a chunk off of this, and then rather than drilling holes into it, kind of like you would do with like a Bowie knife or a hidden tang knife, I'm going to do it similar to a katana, where I've cut it in half, and then I'm going to be taking out that inside, putting those back together. The reason why I'm doing it this way is I want a very, very, very tight fit. I want a tight fit because I'm going to also peg it, but I'm not going to glue it. And so I want the fit to be tight enough that if I do anything with it, like if I decide to test with it or do any work against it, it'll still be able to hold. So if there's any space in there for it to rattle around, it just wouldn't be able to handle that strain. And then I want to be able to pull the handle apart, just like you would a katana handle. So the first thing I'm doing is just hollowing out this first half. Once I get this hollowed out, I'll be working on the second half. Before I can work on the second half, though, I'll have to fix the section of the tang that is chunked out. But here I'm just going, I'm seeing how deep into the handle that is. I need it to be 50%. And so there's just a lot of back and forth. Once I finished that, I went ahead and fixed the handle before I started cutting out the other side. So I filled it full with epoxy, and then actually I put a stringer. So it has a core. I just used a piece of leftover, I think it's copper rod that I had. And I drilled into the bill a little bit and then cut out a section of the wood. I did that just so that it'd be a little bit more sturdy. It's going to have more strain on it because of how the handle is, and so I wanted it to have a stronger connection, a stronger bond. So that's what that's for. I let that sit for about a day, and now I'm back at it. I'm going to be putting in this second handle now. The way that I'm carving these handles out is I'm marking it first with a marker, a knife marker, and then just using my chisel and going back and forth. The last time I did this, a long time ago, I tried to use a Dremel and it just didn't work well. Just some sharp chisels work a lot better. It's you go a little bit at a time. If you try to go too much, you'll chunk the wood. So you just want to remove just a little bit of wood at a time, and just take your time and be patient with it. I cut out actually a ton of this. I spent probably a good 3-4 hours doing both sides, maybe a little bit longer, just because of how tight I wanted that fit to be. So the next step here is I'm going to be gluing these together. I put some painter's tape on my desk just so that they don't glue to my desk. I do that all the time. There I'm just making sure I have them lined up. I let it sit for 24 hours, and now I'm going to come back at it. The fit here, I got that glued up almost perfect. There was a little bit of excess glue on the inside, so I had to clean that out. Once I got that cleaned out, it went in perfectly. There's a little bit of a gap, and you can kind of see it there, and so I want to take care of that gap. But man, is it snug. I end up having to bang it against my desk in order to free it. So it's just a perfect fit. I know there's a way of doing this with a katana. I'm just not good at it, and the handle is not shaped, so it's a square handle, so it kind of hurts your hand. But that's okay. I did remove, what I decided to do was remove a little bit on the back end rather than trying to remove any on close to the sword, just because I wanted to keep it clean and I had good edges all the way around. So here I'm marking in where the pins are going to be. I'm going to do this before I shape. I'm going to do that this way because what I'm going to end up doing is once I get to the point where I'll be shaping the handle, I'm going to probably shape the handle with the pins in place. I haven't decided yet. I might not. I just wanted to get the pins there. My kids were playing in the background. My daughter got a little sliver, and so we were just putting a Band-Aid on it after we pulled that out. So here I'm going to do just one section of this. I really wasn't sure how this was going to look. My idea here, and again, I'm just kind of, none of this is proof. I'm just testing, just having fun. So my idea here is this is like electricity, like lightning. And so I'm using my Dremel to groove it out. I wanted to use a darker pigment, but the darker pigment I had, I didn't have enough. I was afraid I'd run out. So I used this deep blue pigment. And I ended up really liking it. I think it kind of fits well with the look of the electricity. So I let that sit for a day, and then I'm going to come back. All I'm doing here with the X-Acto knife is just cutting off some of the larger sections. It's still a little bit soft, but that's okay. It'll harden with time. And then I went ahead and sanded it, and I ended up liking it. So the reason why I only did half of it the first time was in case I didn't like it. That way I only had to go back and grind out half. So I'm going to go ahead and do the second half. I actually kind of liked the white look too. I was tempted to use, I have a white pigment. I was tempted to use the white pigment. But I was kind of 50-50. I figured I would just keep going with the dark blue pigments and see how that goes. Let me know in the comments below if you think I should have used a different color pigment. I still have so much left to do on this piece. I don't even know yet what I'm going to do with the handle. I have some ideas that I'm kind of playing around with. I haven't fully set it. One thing I did do though that I wanted to mention is the epoxy that I'm using is a really low viscous epoxy. It's really thick. I did that so that it wouldn't fall out of the grooves. It'd stick to the grooves easier because this piece isn't flat. It's curved. And so I needed an epoxy that wouldn't run all over the place. And so I used a thicker epoxy that I had just for that purpose. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. I still have a lot to do on this. I'm hoping to finish it by next week's video. I'm not sure yet, but so far it's been a ton of fun. I really enjoy it. If you liked it, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.